Hey, everybody, it's Blair Lee, career strategist and purpose-driven coach. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live interview with the one and only Nate Sahlman. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So let me just do the proper introduction before we get going. Let's see. Nate is the owner of Life Proof Agency. He and his team protect families from financial devastation. He also shows people how to use asset protection as a foundation to build and create generational wealth, which we all like. Nate comes from a traditional corporate background, but made a switch to entrepreneurship in order to create the work-life balance that he was looking for. So welcome, Nate. Does that pretty much cover kind of you and your initial story?
Absolutely, it does. And first off, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have you here. We always have the best conversations. So just so everybody knows, Nate and I actually met at a networking event probably about a year and a half ago, I would say.
Yeah.
And just, we hit it off, started talking, and we become, kind of friends, like kind of talking about business and stuff like that ever since. So it's been kind of neat to see his evolution from what he was doing before into what he's doing now. So actually, if you'd be open to sharing more about kind of your path, that'd be great to hear, to kind of let everybody know.
Sure. So I actually started as my career in law enforcement. I was one of those kids that always wanted to be a police officer, and it just really never changed throughout the years. So I ended up getting into law enforcement in 2012 here in Davidson, North Carolina. Really enjoyed the career. However, I think with a lot of people, money is on the foresight of your brain. And although I enjoyed what I was doing, I enjoyed the people that I worked with, and I enjoyed the time, because you only work 12 hours. So you're pretty much working 15 days a month. So you have a lot of free time to do the things you want to do. I didn't like the money. So I actually was working a part-time job and would literally work a 12-hour shift, sleep for a couple hours, and then go work in the restaurant, the industry I grew up in, and would then go back to work. So I'd work like 18-hour days on the days that I would work. And so that was just really tough. And with a family and two kids, it was just hard to support them the way that I wanted to kind of be able to be there for them. So I made a transition out of law enforcement into the car business, of all places.
Okay.
No history of sales background whatsoever.
Now, did you always like fast cars?
Always been in the cars.
Okay. So there was some sort of synergy there. It wasn't like just out of the blue.
Correct. However, I never thought about selling cars before. But I had a friend of mine who went to the police academy together. And he found out really quickly that law enforcement just wasn't for him. Okay. So he had gotten out and went back to his roots of the car business. And he and I had stayed in contact throughout the years. And one day he literally just hit me up. Was like, "Hey man, I know you're struggling. We've talked a lot. I think you would do really great in the car business." And I was like, "Yeah, no."
Because you think of the sleazy, grimy, salesy.
But he started talking about the money possibilities. And ultimately, I told him, well, if that's the case, show me a paycheck. And he didn't just show me one. He showed me like the past 3 months. Okay. And when I had seen what he was doing, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like ridiculous. Like doctors make that type of money. There's no way you're making that in the car business.
It's so funny. Just to kind of interject real fast, because a friend of mine, actually, who I'll be interviewing next week on the show, he and I always talk about going to the source to understand really what are the potentials and possibilities, because there's so many people out there who are telling you, here are the possibilities, here's what you could do, I'm making so much money. There's somebody who can just drive up to a car lot and take a picture next to a fancy car and say, oh, look, I'm balling, and it's just to actually go to the source and to ask for his paycheck, I think is a very important move for you to make such a life-changing decision. You need to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row and done your due diligence.
Absolutely. And what's really crazy is, we start researching and Googling, and of course I look at, average car salesman, how much does he make? And it comes up like 40,000. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So for him to show those checks, I was like, wow, that's incredible. Obviously I consulted with my wife, my parents, my family, about it. And literally everyone except for my wife was like, don't do it. You've always wanted to be a police officer. There's a pension that you could potentially get. It's an honorable position. You're helping folks. Great benefits. And so I think it was just that risk factor that they were like, hey, don't
security versus risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my wife really was the one to believe in me and she said, Nate, I think you could do it. She's like, babe,
Well,
you can do this.
what's funny, I mean, she's the one who's seeing you every day. She's seeing your responses and kind of the results of you being in the police force, whereas everyone is not seeing that or subject to seeing that every day. So she has she has the closest perspective as, you know, as compared to anybody else who's probably giving you their opinions, which their opinions were obviously meant from love, meant from a place of love and support. You know, it wasn't meant from a negative place, but, you know, it's kind of hard to make a decision based on other people's reality.
No,
or expected reality.
I definitely agree. And, you know, so we prayed about it and we ended up taking the leap. And my very first month, I made $10,000.
Gosh.
It was life-changing. I mean, I paid off card bills that I had for a long time, making minimum payments, trying to get rid of them in just one swoop.
That's amazing. That's,
I was blessed once to, you know, that it worked out, and two, that it was a great dealership and great family environment to be around. But I quickly excelled in that position and got offered a finance manager position, where from that point it really took off. Where I worked there for 5 years, and, you know, at the end of it, the last couple of years, I was making a multiple six-figure income. Now, great job, you know. But the problem was I was sacrificing on family time, because you know, anyone who's worked in the car business, you are a work slave at that place. 65.
How many hours a week?
Consistently 65 hours a week. On the busy months, maybe 80. You know,
like I was gonna say, like year end, or you're trying to kind of get your year end inventory. Like that's probably
always on your day off. You know, really working just about 6 days a week. So although we were doing great financially, you know, we're able to move to the house we wanted, both driving nice cars, and you know, that Facebook life, right? And things, going on vacations.
So everybody probably thought that you were just, you know, living the life. And I mean, and you were in some ways, and you're probably grateful for it, but at what cost? How old were your kids at this time?
So my kids currently right now are 8 and 3. Olivia's the 8-year-old, and Natalie is 3. And so I'm really in that precious moments. You know, I've already seen the transition from my 8-year-old now, from when she was 3. You know, I'm starting to be not the cool dad anymore, even at 8 already. And I'm like, this isn't supposed to happen for quite some time. So I was really seeing the effects of, you know, missing out, because you're constantly missing events and certain family functions. And I mean, I did that when I was a police officer too. You know, it's your shift to work Christmas. Right. Just is what it is. But at least you have 15
days. At least you had the day after off, or whatever it is. Like, that's not as much of a sacrifice.
Yeah. Versus here, you know, there were times where I would see them in the morning, and then I wouldn't see them till next morning, because they'd be in bed by the time I got home.
Right.
So it really cultivated into the transition of getting into insurance through a multiple of different things. I would say one was the time, and probably the biggest thing was the time. And then second biggest was the conflict of pay. Anyone who's worked a commission job typically will see the pay plan change as the years go. And it's typically not in favor of the person doing the work. And so
meaning as you are more and more doing well?
Yes. So the more money you make the company, typically they don't pay you more. They pay you the same. So they say, listen, your best ever month was this. So now, from now on, in order to make the same money that you were making, that is the new par. They keep raising the bar. And so
it's expectations. It's more of expectations.
But expectations also driven with the pay. So if you don't hit that, then you're not going to make that same money. So you're consistently making the company more money.
So you're penalized for doing well.
In essence, yes, you are. Because you're obviously making the company more money, but you're making the same or less. You have the potential to make more, right? But you have to exceed the bar.
The bar is always higher.
And then, you know, as far as expectations of where to go in the company from there, you know, the trajectory, saw a lot of politics involved, and it just wasn't the route I really wanted to go. So I started looking at different possibilities of different jobs, and I came across a gentleman named John Mason, and he and I started talking, and, you know, he brought up insurance. I was like, again, I don't know anything about insurance. You know, I don't know how this works. And, you know, I started doing my research again, as far as, you know, what kind of money they make. And again, it was you know, average insurance agent makes $40,000 a year, $1,000 a year. And I was like, so like the first time I said, show me, prove it to me. And at the time, he was making right under 7 figures. So he was in the $800,000, $900,000 range per year. Showed me his bank account and was like, this is what I'm doing. I've been doing I've been in the business for 10 years and really sold me the dream of being able to have flexibility of my time, being able to, have that entrepreneurial lifestyle of work when you want to work. It's still hard work, but you still, you can have those things. And then the sky's the limit. So,
well, don't forget, I mean, we'll kind of delve into this a little bit as well, the impact that you can have on other people as well.
Yeah.
Generationally, as I said in the introduction.
It's really cultivated into the perfect career path because it is hitting on so many things that I'm looking for. Police officer wise, I loved helping folks, being part of the community, and then transitioned because I wasn't making any money. Then went to an industry that, you care about your clients, of course. Selling them a Lexus is not going to change their life in any way, shape, or form. To now, I get to help people have flexibility in my time and also make a really great living in the same thing. So that's kind of been my path, but they've all kind of been calculated risks.
Well, I mean, it sounds like where you are now is kind of, again, as you just kind of were alluding to, a hybrid of the things that you found that were important to you. And as you were saying, when you were deciding whether or not to leave the police force, a lot of people were saying, oh, no, don't leave because you have the pension, you have all the other benefits.
Yes.
But you were able to learn about the process. And that's kind of what I teach my clients is, even if something wasn't the right fit for you, you took something positive from it. So then you added to the list, here are the things in my ultimate job, here's what I want. And what was you're focused the most on when you left the police force was money. So then switch, the money was flowing, but then you didn't realize how important it was to have that work-life balance. Correct. So you said, oh no, I want both the work-life balance and the money. And of course, to be able to help people, which is, just a baseline value of yours. So transition into what you're doing now with the insurance it sounds like it's a great combination of everything that you've progressed through in your career so far.
That's exactly right. I really enjoy what I do, and I brag about this industry all the time. I tell people about it because the first thing you hear about insurance, you're just like, no.
Well, you think it's not sexy. Like you think
nothing sexy about it.
Like tell me, wow me. Tell me some cool stuff about insurance that would make me get jazzed up.
So I'll actually give you an example. I just recently brought on a new agent. She's a single mom. I actually did a quick interview with her on Monday, actually.
Okay. On LinkedIn, or you posted on LinkedIn, or okay. So we'll share his LinkedIn profile and everything at the end of the broadcast.
So she's a brand new agent. She has been in sales before, but never been into insurance. She's tried all sorts of things. Single mom, so she has a young daughter who's in the crazy world of what school is now with all the schedules. She needs flexibility.
Right.
She's doing
so much uncertainty there.
Yeah, she was doing Uber because it's flexible. She works when she wants to work, and what's really neat about it is that her very first day she made $1,800, and that wasn't even a full day that she worked. So
I can't even put that together. In my mind, I'm thinking, as you're like, how is that even possible? I'm thinking your first day on a job, you're trying to find the bathroom, you're
correct. So I think the possibilities, and I knew it for myself when I saw that first check as a police officer, because police officers don't make a lot of money. I think with overtime, I was making like $40,000 a year, which is not a lot after taxes.
Right. So being married and having 2 kids.
Correct. When you see a paycheck or see someone making, thousands of dollars in a day, it's almost like impossible.
Yeah, unfathomable.
You
can't even, in our mindsets of how we think, especially in corporate America, kind of the rigid paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, all that kind of stuff, we can't even think big enough to think that it's even possible to get a multi-$1,000 check in a day. And there are a lot of people who are doing it. And your industry is one where people are.
It is. And she had a big, I had told her, and I was like, listen, and she put a lot of trust and confidence in me to take the class, because it costs money to take the class and get licensed. It takes time. But I said, listen, if you are coachable, you're ethical, you're a hard worker, you can do amazing things in this business.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem that I see with a lot of people, when you tell them about the money that you can make, it's their center of influence. if you are hanging out with people who have never made that type of money before in the past,
Yeah.
or they're still stuck in their dead end job, they're unhappy just in general, of course you're going to get a lot of negative feedback. But with the people that I hang out with now, you know, a lot of them are 7-figure earners. They do really well for themselves. And so when you hang out with all of these people and you hear the mindset of how they think, all of a sudden you're like, yeah,
why not? Why it's not, why is it not possible? I mean, that's the concept of the famous Jim Rohn quote that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
You're the average of them in terms of health, wealth, like every aspect of your life. Like if you look at your 5 closest confidants and you take all their paychecks or whatever, the money they're making in a month, you average it out. That most likely is going to be very close to what you're making, good or bad.
It is. And you know what? I take this back even to as kids, right? My mom always said, be careful of those guys. Don't hang out with those boys there.
Yeah.
You know, they're a bad influence, you know. So you take on
because you see what's normal, like it become normalized that either good and bad. Why not normalize
the good,
wealth, health, like all the good stuff? I mean, why not have that be the normal thing? It's just, it's so interesting because people go, especially given, my mind's kind of processing all this right now because it's such a great point that I would love for people to understand that, especially given what's been going on in 2020 and, you know, we're bombarded by a lot of negative images and not that it's not valid, but we need to choose to kind of shift and look at the positive and the possibility, because whenever something bad happens, there's always a seed in it of something better and of growth. And if you anchor onto that, you will ride that train. You will ride that growth.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to finish up the question that we had. So for her, again, this is the most money she's ever made in a day. Yeah. She sees the possibilities and she's she's a greenie. So
she doesn't even know, she doesn't even know where the bathroom is. Like,
she is so excited now. You know, she called a bunch of her friends, her parents. She's excited what this is going to do for her daughter and the time that they're going to be able to spend together now, you know, and not have to worry about certain bills. So I'm extremely excited for her. And I think that's another great thing that I enjoy doing. I enjoy helping others. I used to train people at Lexus, and from them coming and watching them go from, you know, this point to here, to now going on vacations, to doing this and buying X, Y, and Z. It's rewarding, even though, you know, at the time I didn't get anything out of it, but I just enjoy helping people.
Innately you did though. Like you saw, and that's another thing that you're adding to the list of criteria, things that you enjoy, things that you excel at. And now you're able to actually leverage that and then see the path that got you from there to here. Whereas before you just enjoyed it, but you didn't understand that it was a big part of who you are, is helping others grow.
Yep. So it's been an amazing journey. You know, 2020, I think, has been a rough year for a lot of folks. But I got to say, for me and a bunch of people that I know, it's been the best year.
Really?
You know, this entire summer, I didn't work a single weekend, which is like unheard of. I saw a lot of firsts with my kids that I would have not normally been a part of if I was working in the car business.
And they were at home as well.
And they're home. So, you know, I've really valued time now. You know, I love our conversations because we're both really on the same pages a lot of time, and we understand the value of time and that we are in control as much as people, I think, don't think they are. We're in control of our destiny. We're in control of our happiness, and happiness doesn't have to start when you're 65 and retired. Happiness can start today.
In small ways. It doesn't have to be and that's the thing. I always talk about shades of gray. It doesn't have to be black and white. It could be some small little move that you make into some direction that brings more happiness to you and more joy. And then once you start planting that seed, that it starts to grow. And then quickly you're able to kind of get to that place where you're able to really lean into your values, which, you know, as we're talking about, is time, freedom, and, you know, relationships with your family, which is the most important keys to life.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, I think that a lot of people, when you ask what's important to them, they are going to, you know, say, you know, whether it's their faith, family, and then income. Yeah. But I see a lot of folks just really focused more so on the income portion
at the expense of
time.
Well, and then their minds are thinking, well, I'm just doing what I need to do so that in the future I'll be able to have that time. But then that goalpost always gets pushed forward. And then, I mean, as time passes, I mean, there's so much uncertainty, obviously, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, but there's so much uncertainty. And who knows if in 10 years you're going to be in a position to be able to be there with your kids who are grown now,
Correct.
unfortunately,
Correct.
So, well, tell me a little bit more about insurance in general. Like I'm hearing the aspect of it in terms of you internally with your team and how
Mhm.
you're actually able to help people. But
Yep.
how are you doing insurance helping others as recipients of the insurance policies or whatever the process is? Like, what does
Sure.
that look like in terms of building generational wealth, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people look at insurance as an expense,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's money that's going out every single month. And I would say with traditional life insurance, that's exactly the case. In fact, for a lot of people, they look at it as it's actually the only insurance is that if something happens, I will not get the benefit of it. My family
Yeah.
will benefit. So for them,
Mm-hmm.
it is expense, expense, expense. I don't
Yeah.
need it. And it's a morbid conversation just in
Yes.
general. However, over the last several years, these companies have now introduced what's called living benefits,
Okay.
which just allows a certain person or a person to access their life insurance while they're alive if they have been diagnosed with a certain illness or injury.
Okay.
So some of the big ones here are cancer,
Okay.
heart attack, and stroke. I think everyone knows at least one person who's,
Mm-hmm. Would COVID fall under that? If
COVID does fall under it too.
Okay.
They just changed some things under with
That's
COVID as well.
very relevant then. Yeah.
So think about this, right? You have a lot of people who are just on that hamster wheel. They're chugging away. They want to get to retirement so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're putting money away in their 401ks or IRAs. They have money in savings. They're trying to own their own home. Those are great pillars for having a successful retirement.
Definitely.
Okay? Now, the problem that we see often, and medical bills are the number one cause for bankruptcies in our country today, is that people are underprepared for these life-changing events.
Yeah.
So just think about this. Let's say, God forbid, you had a stroke, okay? And again, morbid conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
God forbid,
no one wants to talk about it. You have to kind of force these conversations because they're real life.
It's a very uncomfortable conversation. So typically I would talk to my clients and say, hey, let's imagine Mrs. Smith, she has a stroke. She's the main bread provider in the family. We go through our usual things. The ambulance comes, you're going to the doctor performs surgery and says, hey, Mr. Smith, your wife just had a stroke. She's going to be okay, but the recuperation time is unknown. Okay. She might have some fine motor skills gone. She might have some paralysis, some cognitive skills might be impaired. So she might be out of work for the next 9 to 18 months. Okay? That's a long time. Yeah. Okay. And even strokes can be permanent damages. Anyway. So what I ask them is, hey, you have health insurance. That's great. But most health insurance doesn't cover 100%. You get a flu shot. It's a $35 copay.
Yeah.
Imagine now you have all these surgeries. So you have let's say most people have 80-20. So 20% they're responsible for. So let's go through it. You have 20% for this. Yeah. Mr. Smith, do you still work? You do. Okay. So Mrs. Smith needs help in her day-to-day routines. You have any family that can watch her 24/7 and help her bathe, go to the bathroom, things of that nature? Or will you have to hire someone or take off work yourself? Most cases, either way, it results in them needing something. So in-home healthcare is between $3,000 and $5,000 per month on a part-time basis, and on a full-time basis, between $8,000 and $10,000. Wow. This is covered 0% by health insurance. Yeah. Okay. So not only are they
sorry, that's infuriating.
It's terrible. So not only are they losing income from her income, but they're acquiring more bills from just health insurance portion of as far as what she had for surgeries wise and rehabilitation and stuff. But then you're also bringing on an in-home health care, which is thousands of dollars. Right. So what I tell people is to say, what's the scenario here? You've got X amount of dollars in savings. How many months until that's gone? Yeah. You have X amount of dollars in your 401ks, IRAs. You're going to get penalized based off of the money that you're taking out. Yeah. Okay. And that's for retirement, not for today's stuff.
Not for health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, once that runs out, you have your home, your safe haven. How long until someone's putting that red sticker on your door saying eviction? So all of these things can be stopped by having life insurance with living benefits, because you can actually access up to 95% of that policy up front. They will write you a lump sum check up front, and you can use all of that money to pay for all of the other things that you would normally have to come out of pocket for.
Do you have to pay it back?
You do not.
Okay.
It's tax-free. It's
Okay.
your money. But it really is the foundation
Mm-hmm.
for great financial success.
Yeah.
Obviously, that can translate into other generational wealth as far as different
Mm-hmm.
plans and ways that you can have that money appropriated.
Yeah.
Even for people, a lot of people aren't concerned about generational wealth. They're concerned about today.
Yeah,
But
of course.
it protects you today. It protects your retirement time, and it protects your assets moving forward.
And then if everything's properly put into a proper situation, then generationally, that would be just the icing on the cake.
Correct.
Yeah.
Everything flows through. And man, it's just staggering if you look at the numbers as to the possibilities of getting some of these illnesses.
Yeah.
I mean, cancer for men is 50%. I have a 50% chance of getting cancer.
Yeah.
That stinks. You have a 33% chance of getting cancer.
Okay.
And that's just one trigger out of the 27 triggers that there are. Cancer,
and
heart,
then add COVID on top of it.
COVID. You can get into a bad car accident,
Right.
go coma, paralysis, severe burns. There are so many things that this covers.
Yeah. Okay.
We're really helping people with the foundation, making sure that their foundation for their financial success is strong.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, what a great, I'm very much inspired by what you're saying. Not only are you able to do this in a way that's actually beneficial to not only yourself and your family and the people on your team and kind of helping people grow, but you're sharing this education that I think a lot of us don't know, or a lot of us, as we talk about, it's a morbid conversation, and a lot of people don't want to plan for what could eventually go wrong. And unfortunately, as you just said, the statistics are high that something could go wrong. So it's just such good information to even just lay as a foundation. I mean, and maybe if people don't want to act on it today, it's something to kind of keep in your mind for future planning, because I think, unfortunately, there's always a risk. Life is a risk.
There's risks involved, and there are also different plans that you can take the risk out, as far as having return of premium plans. There are tax advantage plans that are out there. There's a lot of cool things. If you speak to people who are affluent and know a lot about money, I can promise you they've got insurance out the wazoo.
Now, let me ask you, this may be a controversial question, because talking to about affluent people, which a lot of us, we're not necessarily talking to a lot of these affluent people. How many of them have a 401k?
A lot of them.
They do? Okay. Because I know there's a mindset. I know that a lot of people who are affluent don't necessarily participate in the 401k, but that insurance is actually more of a vehicle for them.
Correct. So it just depends. Again, affluent, I guess, is a
relative term. I'm talking about like the high top.
But if you are considering something, I would highly suggest reading and picking up the book. The new rules of retirement.
Okay, and I'll add that as a link when we post this broadcast.
It is an extremely quick read. As you can see, it's extremely thin here. It's only about 100 pages, but it's really fast. And it talks about how the 401k might not be the best vessel for your retirement. Hard conversation to have with folks. So I always suggest they read this book, because it is a quick read. There are tons of books out there, but they're typically long-winded. But I would say that is a great book to read if you're considering different retirement options. Okay.
I will put a link to that book when we post this video. So no, this has been an amazing conversation, as always. You and I we go in deep on a lot of this stuff, and I always get inspired when I talk to you. So thank you so much. I want to learn more about I guess I have created a little graphic I'm gonna put up on ways to reach out to you, but who should be reaching out to you if anybody wants to learn more about any of this?
Sure. So on the entrepreneurial side, I'm always open for a conversation. This has changed my life in such a positive way. I've gotten to spend so much more time with my family. I've been there for so many more events, but also it's helped me out financially as well. Anyone who's looking to make a change, and it doesn't have to be into insurance. I have a lot of different contacts that I can get you in contact with, but anyone who's looking to make a change in that, feel free to reach out to have a conversation. Go ahead.
Let me interject, because one thing I want to also make clear, if people are interested in maybe exploring this from an entrepreneurial perspective, how many hours a week would they have to commit? Is this something that they would have to quit their job in order to do, or could they work with you on a part-time basis?
So I call it the Uber of financial services and insurance. You can work as much or as little as you want. There are no hours. You set your own hours. There's no quotas. You literally can work 5 hours a month if you wanted to. I have a lot of people who work with me who are retired, And they are doing this because they want the flexibility of being able to do whatever they want without asking permission to do it. So this is probably the most flexible position out there that you can make.
Well, and as we already referred to, the lady who you did that video, which you posted on LinkedIn this week, she worked how many hours before making her $1,800? 7 hours. So she worked almost a full day, but her first day and made $1,800. Okay.
Correct. Okay. So on that aspect, but
yes,
if you're interested in learning anything about insurance, there's a lot of misconceptions about insurance. And I think people just aren't educated on the possibilities of what insurance can do for you. There's a lot of different avenues. So if you have any questions about insurance, again, happy to go over some different plans for you, whether it's thinking for savings plans for your kids, or if it's just something that you want to protect your assets with. A lot of great things there, but feel free to reach me at any of these things here. I am a phone person. I like talking to people.
Oh, I know this.
Yeah, you know. But the fastest.
And you can also make a text you as well at that number as well.
Text is probably the fastest way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
I'm on my phone quite often.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, so this, again, if you want to look at this here, everyone who's watching, these are the ways you can reach out to him. I will also post this graphic in as a comment in this broadcast, so you could see it more clearly there as well as tagging him. I'm tagging Nate in this broadcast, and as well as I'll put a link to the new rules of retirement savings in there as well. So I think that's about it. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you think that we should talk about today?
No, I think we covered it all. We did do it on time. Normally you and I talk for hours.
I know. That's why I was trying to keep this to about a half an hour. So I was trying to, because I want to make sure that this is digestible information. I want to make sure that people can actually, because I want to hear the full scope of not only your story, in terms of your growth and transition career-wise, but also just the benefits of insurance that maybe a lot of us, before kind of really talking to you, I didn't understand. I've heard of life insurance. I thought it was just some blah thing that maybe if a former employer offered it, I would say, sure, give me some life insurance. But I didn't understand the powerful position that you could put yourself in by having a properly structured life insurance plan. And so I wanted to make sure that we shared that today as well.
It's incredible when you go over the details of certain things. My wife and I are currently in the process of buying my children a pension. Okay. So also that's a really neat thing, talking to parents who have a little extra money to put aside. You can actually buy your child a pension. How cool would that be to have?
I had no idea. Maybe I'll have to have you back on in a couple of weeks and we'll have to talk about this, because that's a whole other conversation. I didn't know that was such a thing.
Yep. So.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, well, and anybody who's watching this, if you have any interest in talking about any of the above, reach out to Nate. Again, I will tag him in this broadcast and I will include that graphic with his contact information. So it's been a pleasure. And, thank you so much for being on today, Nate.
Thank you so much for having me, Blair.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.